Here we go. All right, we are recording. So my name is Alex Gandy. I'm the Director of Career Services here at Missouri Southern. And as we kind of planned and programmed as a career services office, we wanted to make sure that we were meeting students' needs. And I can't tell you how many times I had conversations with students this past fall semester who were either graduated in December or who were graduated in May, who really felt intimidated by the pandemic job market. And as they were upcoming professionals, even how to prepare for their careers in the midst of a pandemic. Maybe they were juniors, but they were intimidated about internships, so they were trying to figure things out related to career development or getting involved in associations. And so we thought to kick off our spring semester virtual professional development series, I wanted to make sure that we kind of talked about COVID-19 and that we have to admit, ladies and gentlemen, that this is a challenge, that these are unprecedented times in the midst of the job market. Whether we're talking to a student or an alumni, or we're talking to a talent acquisition specialist or an HR generalist, everybody is treading in new waters. And so that's the one thing that will be an overarching theme that I talk about today, is that you are not alone, and that we are all kind of working through this together. So let's kind of ask, what are we going to be talking about today? What does our agenda look like? I kind of have four main points. One, how has COVID-19 changed employment and recruitment? Like, what does that actually look like? I have some statistics to share with you that are national as well as local. How to remain optimistic as you career plan. Many of the students we have worked with over the past 8 to 10 months have been facing a lot of challenges and facing a lot of discouragement. And I wanted to remind and encourage you and challenge you to stay optimistic. How to get started in this current job market. As we all know, social distancing is so important. Interviewing looks a lot different. Career fairs aren't really happening as in a traditional format. So where do you get started as you plan for your career? And then how do you embrace your current skill set while also expanding in additional skills? I want to kind of remind students to kind of maintain their flexibility and creativity in relation to their skills. So let's go ahead and get started this afternoon. Let's talk about what has changed and what's the same. So, ladies and gentlemen, every industry has been affected by COVID-19. As we look at our top 50 to 100 employers in the four-state community, every industry has been affected by COVID-19. Even within the healthcare industry, whether maybe they're still hiring within their healthcare system, but maybe those interview processes, maybe you becoming a candidate within their candidate pool looks a whole lot different. Those HR teams are still challenged. Or, we have some of our other industries like our manufacturing industry who frankly have been heavily impacted by this. And not only are they're not hiring employees right now, but they've had to have significant furloughs or significant layoffs. And so that's a significant change that we need to be aware of. It's difficult to understand where we need to go if we don't know where we are currently. And the current job market related to COVID-19, each industry has unique challenges. And it's important for all of us, and whether you are pursuing internships or pursuing a full-time or part-time job, you need to understand how has COVID affected that specific industry. So you need to do your homework. And we'll talk about that here a little bit later. What also has changed is that technology trumps the traditional networking methods. As we have learned, whether that's through Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce involvement, whether those are professional associations or professional organizations, networking is happening more and more right now through what we're doing right now, virtual conferencing. So technology has trumped a lot of traditional methods, and it's important to be aware of what that looks like, that when you want to network with someone, man, LinkedIn has become that much more important to you in your career planning, or getting engaged with a virtual event has become much more important, and more so the standard and the norm in this season. We have various employers, for example, who normally will be on our campus 2 or 3 times a year recruiting, and there's a moratorium on those organizations that they cannot come to our campus to recruit. One of those is Arvest Bank. I was just talking to a recruiter yesterday at Arvest Bank, and they're one of our top employers. They hire a large volume of our students, whether that's a part-time student or even a full-time, for a full-time job opportunity, and they're not allowed to go anywhere for face-to-face recruiting. So they've been doing all of their recruiting through technology. And so it's important for us to be aware as we kind of approach your career in relation to the pandemic. Technology is key. Now, what's the same? Let's talk about that for a second. Recruiting hasn't stopped. So the National Association of Colleges and Employers, which is an association we belong to as an MSSU Career Services Office, recruiting hasn't stopped. 60% of companies maintain their recruiting efforts. That it was just because there was a pandemic ongoing, that did not mean that their recruiting efforts were completely stopped. 60% maintained that, as well as what we have heard from employers throughout the pandemic and throughout COVID-19 is that those core competencies and skills are still the standard. That just because the pandemic has maybe challenged them in their recruiting efforts, or maybe that has challenged them in how many openings they can provide or how many people they're hiring, that does not mean that their quality of candidate has been reduced or what they are looking for has been reduced. So it's important to understand that. All right, so let's transition. So we kind of talked about what has changed. Virtual networking is one of those big things that have changed throughout the pandemic and throughout COVID-19. So for you to prepare, you have to log in. So one, pat yourselves on the back for being here today, that this is a safe place for you to experiment and get to know a platform called Zoom. But I wanted to make sure that you are aware of a wide variety of other platforms that many of our business partners and employer partners are using. Skype for Business is pretty regularly used. And as we surveyed some of our top 25 employers, as we work with our Career Services Advisory Board and some of the regional employers within the community, Skype for Business is really prevalent as far as how they are networking with candidates who apply for some of their jobs. GoToMeeting. This is, again, another pretty business strict service that, again, I'm not going to go into all the details of each of these, but that is another opportunity to engage virtually. And then Google Hangouts. Some of our students who have come maybe from Google schools within the K-12 sector maybe are familiar with Google Hangouts, but more and more of our employer partners are also using Google Hangouts. And then, of course, Zoom. Zoom is probably the most common, I would say, virtual networking platform. But you have to log in. You have to start experimenting with some of these things. You have to get to know that you have to kind of be the Swiss Army knife of virtual networking, that there's not just one platform that every single employer is going to use, but there's going to be a wide variety. So you need to grow comfortable with understanding, what do those controls look like? How do you mute yourself? How do you turn on or off your camera in those various platforms? And so don't hesitate to give those a Google, check those out. I'm not going to go into detail for every single one, like I said earlier, but you have to log in to get engaged in the conversation. So how are you learning about those various platforms? Here at Missouri Southern, for example, I didn't even mention Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is the #1 way that a lot of our faculty and staff are interacting with one another right now, as well as through Zoom. And so be aware of those various virtual platforms that you're going to network with employers. Now, the pandemic has changed methods, but it has not changed timing. As we have surveyed some of our employers, as well the National Association of Colleges and Employers has surveyed employers, here's what the trends are telling us. Like, here's what the feedback from employers are telling us. 2/3 of employers are stating that they're maintaining their standard hiring schedule. So here's what that means. Even though the pandemic is in the midst of us right now, maybe social distancing in that specific municipality where their headquarters is, or here in Joplin, or wherever that may be, they're maintaining their schedule. They still have to interview candidates. They still have to fill those positions, and they're not going to stop that timeline. So that means you need to be aware of that. Nobody has slowed down, that the hiring climate in specific industries and sectors hasn't slowed down just because a pandemic is going on, but they still have to recruit talent. 70% of employer respondents are still conducting internships, virtual or in person. This has been one of I would say, the bigger challenges for our students, is understanding, what does that internship climate look like in this specific season? And for example, and I'll actually ask permission for this, but one of our core partners is Leggett & Platt. They're in Carthage, Missouri, a little bit north of campus here at Missouri Southern. They have a DOORS program, which is an internship. As the pandemic approached the summer, that DOORS program turned completely to virtual. And as I was working with a recruiter just last week and talking to them about the DOORS program, they think that's going to be a little bit of a hybrid model this coming summer. But again, they still want to have internships. You have to remind yourself as a student, as you are maybe a sophomore, junior, senior, or even a freshman, an internship is considered a talent pipeline for any organization or business. That's why internships are critical, not only for you as the student to gain professional experience, but this is also a really easy way for the company or the organization to assess your skill sets, to kind of dabble in the waters, to dip their toe into their talent pool to see what's coming out of the college, you could say, candidate market, and who do they want to hire, who do they want to stick with. So 70% of our employers are maintaining that. 54% of employer respondents are recruiting exclusively through virtual formats. Now think about that for a second. 54% are exclusively recruiting through some type of laptop, through some type of, not necessarily through a laptop, but through some type of virtual platform. So how are you as a candidate preparing for that? Are you aware of that you maybe need a better laptop with a better webcam? Or maybe are you aware that you need to have a really good internet connection whenever you're about to start that interview? Those are key pieces of information for you to understand as you transition and enter into the COVID-19 job market. Only 16% of employer respondents are recruiting in person or at traditional events. So here in the Missouri Southern Career Services Office, that's why we're not hosting a traditional spring career fair. Ladies and gentlemen, as much as that it really discourages me that we don't get to have that large scale event that's over in the Leggett and Platt Athletic Center, where again, typically every single year we have 120 to 130 organizations here in person, squeezed really tight around that track, table to table. That's not going to happen. And I would love to see 300 to 400 students come through the auditorium one day, but as of right now, that's not happening, that traditional recruitment. So be prepared for that. Only 10% of employer respondents are recruiting in a hybrid format. So here's what that means. Maybe that hybrid format is you get a phone screen as step one, and maybe you have a virtual interview as step two, and maybe step three of that interview process is going to be in person in a socially distanced conference room. Some of our employer partners like a Leggett and Platt or like a TAMCO or like a Freeman Health System are using a tiered and hybrid format, but it's still not many. I would say primarily a majority of our employers that we're working with right now are exclusively recruiting through a virtual format. So you need to be aware of that. Now, let's talk about, again, I feel like I've painted a little bit of a discouraging picture, or maybe not discouraging, but again, it's a challenge. The virtual engagement, we know virtual engagement is not the best. It's not the most, it's not the easiest to pick up on social cues, but how can we stay optimistic in the midst of searching for a job in the midst of a pandemic? Again, this is a friendly reminder that you are not alone, that the career services team is here to help you. Whether you are working with a peer advisor, one of our students, or you're working with one of us as career coaches, we want to help you and understand that one, you still have the skills that employers need, and that you have the technology at your fingertips, whether that's here in our career services office, or that is in your residence hall room, or in your apartment or in your house. We can equip you with the tools that you need. We can educate you on how do you make your LinkedIn profile stronger so that your digital footprint is more widely available and more marketable. How are you understanding what those employers are asking of you in relation to going and logging into a GoToMeeting virtual interview? We want to be here to help you. We want to help you understand that your skills are still valuable, that your faculty are here to help you understand that your curriculum is still valuable, and that employers still want to recruit you. It's just through a different method. As well as that HireAlign is still there right now. And honestly, even in the midst of the pandemic, we have seen a small reduction in job postings, but we still are seeing right around 12 to 15 jobs posted on a daily basis. So how often are you checking HireAlign? Again, what I'm trying to encourage you with is that jobs are still being posted, whether those are full-time jobs, part-time jobs, or internships. HireAlign is still a primary resource where our primary four-state employers within this community contact us because, hey, for example, I was just contacted by H.E. Williams about 3 weeks ago because they were looking for a quality engineer. We got that job posted on HireAlign. We immediately emailed faculty in the Industrial Engineering Technology Department, and boom, it was a matter of 2 weeks, and all of a sudden they had 4 to 5 really great candidates, and the recruiter contacted me and was like, hey, thank you so much. That's what we're here to do. We are here, if you were to boil down the career services mission statement, it is to help you feel successful in the job market and connect you with an employer. And so again, that's not guaranteeing you a job. That's not guaranteeing you an internship, but we want to make sure that you are aware of what is being asked of you as a candidate, and then also connecting you with employers who are looking. And I can tell you that there are employers within the four-state community that are looking for every single one of our graduates and they're recruiting in for all of our academic degree programs. Now, let's talk about employers coming to campus. I just talked about how the spring career fair is not happening. How is recruitment happening this spring? I'm really pleased to tell you that we are actually hosting employers on an individual basis this spring. So what does that mean? That means maybe an employer is going to be coming to campus and they're going to be hosting an information session in a virtually distant, or not in a socially distanced environment, maybe in one of our larger lecture halls. And so students will have to sign up ahead of time. And maybe then we have a capacity of maybe 50 students. But again, whether it's JB Hunt, whether that's Freeman Health System, or anybody in between, we have employers still knocking on our door. So there's going to be a few different mediums and formats that employers are coming to campus. We have virtual information sessions that are going to be hosted. So an employer, and this actually just JB Hunt just registered to come to campus here in a few weeks, actually yesterday. And so what they want to do is host a series of virtual information sessions for an hour where students can log in through their virtual conferencing platform. And at this time, I think they're going to be using Zoom. But that way a recruiter and you can still have an engagement opportunity through Zoom. Maybe it is virtual to virtual, it's screen to screen, but they still want to recruit our students and they still want to get to know you. And we still have employers that are knocking down our door and asking to visit with you. It's just going to be in a different format. So what that means to you as the candidate, as to you as a student or recent alumni, how does that apply to you? We send emails regularly promoting these opportunities. We send emails to your faculty regularly promoting these opportunities. And those opportunities are starting this week and next week as far as employers being on campus. So be mindful and look out for that. And then network. And I'll talk more about this here a little bit later, but networking is going to be your key in understanding that your social circle is broader than you think or understand. One of my favorite things as a career coach is when I sit down with maybe you're a senior or a recent alumni and someone is discouraged in the midst of their job search. What are some of the first steps that they take? And I always encourage them, take out your phone. Everybody typically has a contact list and you start going through your contact list because you never know who that person may know in relation to your skills. And so it's your job, even in the midst of a pandemic, even now, your network, your social circle is even more important than ever for you to be able to articulate your knowledge, your skills, and your abilities, but also understand what are you seeking, what kind of job are you looking for, what kind of internship are you looking for, and you need to lean on those people. I love to remind our students here at Missouri Southern State University that our faculty are rock stars at being champions for their own students. Again, regardless of what department, whether you're in the communications department or the criminal justice department or anywhere in between, those faculty care about you. They not only want you to become curriculum experts, but they want to see you be successful in your job and in your career. So you need to start understanding that that is an important aspect of your network, and they are here to be for you and to be champions for you. So then how to get started? What does that process look like? What does a career development process look like? And it sometimes feels as though when I'm working with students in the midst of COVID-19 and then their job search, I need to remind them, what is square one? What is the foundation of how you go about a job search? So there's 4 key steps. There's the discovery process, the exploration process, the planning process, and the acting process. All right. And I'm going to kind of go through each of those individually, but the discovery process really is all about you. You need to continue to discover what are your skills, what are your abilities, what is your value add that you bring to an employer? What is your personality? And I'll talk about this here a little bit later in more detail, but you need to discover attributes about yourself. And then you need to explore the job market. You need to understand what is it that you are passionate and enthusiastic about. And then you need to do some homework. You can't expect to enter the job market and take 30 minutes to explore Indeed or LinkedIn or HireLion and just automatically find that internship that's perfect for you or find that job that's perfect for you. It's going to take some work. It's going to take some exploration, right? And so don't think that that's going to be a short process, but know that it's going to take some digging for you to find that, but they're going to be out there. And then you have to plan. Now, what does planning mean? That means you have to get all of your stuff in order. You need to meet with a career services counselor or a career coach for us to help you write your resume. Or you need to throw your resume at least to a faculty member and have someone else please, just, if you don't take anything else away from this presentation about your job search, I would challenge you that you need to have someone else look over your resume so that they can review your bullet points, review your heading, review your contact information, and make sure that it is articulating your knowledge, skills, and abilities in accordance with what the market is demanding. And then the last aspect of that is acting. You have to start applying for jobs. You have to start engaging in employers. Now, and I'll get to this a little bit later, but the one-size-fits-all resume is not appropriate. And in the hyper-competitive climate of COVID-19, because there are fewer jobs, it is all that more critical for you to execute an effective resume that aligns with that job description, that aligns with the mission and vision of the organization, and for you to follow up on that resume and that application process. So what are some pathways to some employers? Now, again, for those of you who are watching this presentation, I want you to take a look at this picture. This is our spring career fair last year. Now, again, that happened right before the spring. But again, this to me, I put this in here intentionally. I wish our students had this experience again, but we don't have that experience. This was a direct connection to employers face to face, where you could quickly and easily describe who you are, what are you pursuing, what are you passionate and enthusiastic about. That is of no more. And frankly, I don't know when that's going to come back. So what does that mean for you? How do you connect with employers? How do you continue on connecting with employers, and how do you pursue them? One, employer responses vary by industry and location, job function, more. So you need to understand how each industry can be a little bit different as far as how do they engage with their candidates. You need to make an appointment with the MSSU Career Services Office so that you know where you are. Again, thinking of that cycle of your career development plan. How are you discovering your skill sets, and how are you exploring various industries? Because right now, let me say this: you could, if you look at that picture, you could walk into in the Leggett and Platt Auditorium, and you'd be able to explore 12 to 15 different industries. You'd be able to explore 120 to 130 different organizations if you so choose. That is not directly available to you right now. And again, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just saying your exploration process is going to take a little bit more effort and a little bit more intentionality. And guess who's here to help you with that intentionality? Guess who's here to help you with that exploration process? It's the Career Services Office. Now, as far as career services, resources, events, and programming, you got to stay connected. So one, pat yourself on the back. I'm so glad that you're here today, that you are, that shows me, that tells me that you value developing your career, that you value understanding what is the market telling you, what are employers doing right now in relation to employment. So kudos to you. And again, as I said before, we have employers who are going to be starting to come to campus this week and next week. So what does that mean for you as far as a candidate? You need to engage in those virtual networking opportunities. If an employer is having a virtual networking or virtual information session, go and listen. Because guess what? You may have heard of J.B. Hunt, and you may think that they're just a trucking company, but they have an entire division related to IT and technological development and app development, or logistics, or human resources, or marketing. It's a Fortune 500 company. And so they have a lot of different avenues and pathways for a lot of different students that we have here at Missouri Southern State University. So don't discount your assumptions. Like a lot of you have some pretty broad assumptions about companies. And I would challenge you to engage, even if you are not going into in the medical field, but Freeman Health System is here doing an information session, go and listen, because you never know what they're going to be recruiting for. So I kind of just talked about my other bullet point there, but engaging with employers, all of them, and then establishing profiles on recruiting websites like HireLion, LinkedIn, and Indeed. I can't stress this to our students and our alumni enough, but those are all two-way platforms. So they're two-way streets. So here's what I mean by that. Even your HireLion profile, if you opt in to have your profile visible, we on average, on a monthly basis, we have somewhere between 175 and 200 employers log into HireLion per month to either post a job or recruit our students. Now, I will also say a majority of our student users of HireLion don't have their visibility turned on. But that's a strike against them, because we get contacted by recruiters to say like, hey, do you know of a student who? Or, hey, who would you have as a great fit for this? And I would love to be able to point to a student's HireLion profile to a recruiter. And understand that LinkedIn and Indeed those are the two largest recruiting websites in the country in the United States right now. And you need to have a professional and personalized profile on both of those. And guess what the Career Services Office does on a daily basis? We help students get LinkedIn profiles set up regularly, because now in the midst of COVID-19 and the pandemic, LinkedIn is becoming more and more critical for you to articulate your knowledge, skills, and abilities to a recruiter before you ever actually engage with them throughout the interview process. So then more ideas, again, conduct a virtual informational interview. And this is something that, again, we have to be creative in the midst of the pandemic. We can't just try and look back to those traditional methods of engaging with an employer. I would challenge you that you have to be a little bit creative and think outside the box. And so as I've been working with some of our peers, whether that's regionally or nationwide, one of the things that they've invited students to start doing, which has been successful, is maybe you know of someone within your specific career pathway. Now, maybe their organization or their business has not yet actually posted a job on HireLine or Indeed, but maybe you want to just ask them a few questions about how did you get into this industry? What does your daily routine look like? What are some of the challenges or obstacles for you as a professional? That is, again, that's broadening your network. And then through that informational interview, you can actually connect with that professional and let them know, like, well, hey, here's my resume. I am going to be graduating on this date, or hey, I recently graduated and I am looking for a job within this industry. And more often than not, if you've made a positive connection and built, at least even on a foundational level, a positive relationship with that person, they're going to help be your eyes and ears to the industry. Consider joining a professional association. Many of those associations or organizations will help provide you more resources to connect. For example, if you're pursuing a human resources degree here at Missouri Southern State University and you're not involved in the Tri-State Human Resources Association, I would strongly encourage you to do so. That is a network that is, one, continuing to engage with one another on a weekly basis. And they're talking about human resources, best practices, hiring best practices, but you as a candidate or you as a prospective employee can still start to maintain and build your regional reputation, as well as, and that within that association, maybe there's even additional credentials or training that you can be conducting to continue to enhance your skill set. And then the last thing I would just encourage you to do is reconnect with professional contacts. And professional contacts can look like a wide variety of things. Maybe your professional contact is a faculty member. Maybe a professional contact is someone who you have volunteered with, or maybe someone who you have job shadowed with, or maybe it's a former internship supervisor. But professional contacts can be your best friend, and those can often be as far as like low-hanging fruit, those can be a really quick opportunity and a really easy on-ramp to some professional connections and possible job opportunities. So 6 key pieces of information to know that I think every student or every recent alumni who is going through their job search process in the midst of the pandemic needs to kind of be thinking about and be aware of. One is, how urgent is your search? Like right now, if you're a junior listening to this conversation that we're having right now, and you're preparing for your career in a year and a half, all right, your search isn't incredibly urgent. However, what is urgent for you is to build professional experience by gaining an internship. So again, there's different levels of urgency, and there's also different types of job searching. So you need to be aware of, how quickly do I need to gain employment, or how quickly do I need to gain professional experience, so that you can plan and act accordingly. You need to get comfortable networking online. As we've talked about this at length, this is now this relationship, this Zoom call has become the norm. I was actually just working with a recruiter for a manufacturing firm. This was prior to winter break, but they're actually conducting a majority of their first interviews through either Facebook Messenger or FaceTime, which I thought was really, really strange and really a little bit outside the box. But that was one of the quickest ways that they could get face-to-face with their candidates. Also, staying in touch. You need to stay in touch with your former supervisors at internships or maybe those job shadow contacts. You need to stay in touch with your faculty and stay in touch with Missouri Southern. You need to gather intel. Again, I'm challenging you right now, in the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of COVID-19, you can't just walk into a large career fair and get a whole bunch of brochures and flyers about employment. That's not going to happen. So it is your job right now to understand that you have to be gathering information about those industries. How have those industries been impacted by COVID-19? How are those industries rebounding in the midst of COVID-19? For example, again, one of our largest employers in the 4-state communities are Leggett and Platt. Do you know that Leggett and Platt is slowly but surely ramping up employment opportunities again, even in the midst of the struggling COVID-19 challenges? You need to use the time to reflect and review. That it is important for you to understand, okay, where are you? What are your goals? What are you passionate and enthusiastic about? And then review those opportunities. And there's nobody that would love to sit down with you and have that conversation virtually than the Career Services Office. And then you need to boost your skill set. So here, let's talk about that in a little bit. You need to expand your skill sets so that you can expand your employability. Now, especially in the midst of COVID-19, now is not the time to be idle. Now is the time to pursue growth. Again, if you're watching this presentation, you'll see on the right-hand side, we have this career ready competency form here in the Career Services Office. As we work with regional employers, as we work with the National Association of Colleges and Employers, these are the 8 skills that no matter what your future profession is or what your future career goals are, these are the 8 skills that every single person needs to have. That when we work with recruiters, that you better be able to articulate and communicate your abilities and your knowledge to a recruiter. You need to be able to demonstrate teamwork and collaboration. You need to be able to utilize digital technology. There's nothing more frustrating than being on a Zoom call or being in a Google Hangout and someone not knowing how to mute their device, or someone not knowing how to turn their video on. Or when they do turn their video on, like they're way down here in the lower third. You need to understand how to use digital technology. You need to understand career management. Like, I could go through all 8 of these and provide specific examples, but these skill sets have not changed. Regardless of COVID-19, you need to grow in all of these areas. So there's kind of even a self-assessment. Are you developing that skill set? Do you feel like you are currently competent? Do you feel like you're excelling at those? Or how, if you have identified some of these skill sets that, maybe you understand that in digital technology, maybe you don't have a LinkedIn profile. Or maybe you understand that I could really improve my written communication or my presentation skills. How are you growing in those areas? So there are free websites and apps to sharpen those skill sets. Again, I know I mentioned LinkedIn a whole bunch, but LinkedIn has this entirely new platform called LinkedIn Learning that you can gain specific certificates and credentials through LinkedIn about a wide variety of skill sets. There's Khan Academy, Udemy, Coursera, Duolingo, edX, massive open online courses. There's a whole bunch. And guess what office knows about these opportunities? It's the MSSU Career Services Office, and we are here to help you. But I can't challenge you enough that now is not the time to be idle. Now is not the time just to kind of sit back and just hope that your curriculum is going to be enough for you to gain that employment. It's going to be a major factor, but there's also a lot of other contributing factors for you to expand your skill set and to make you employable. One of those things, again, I talked about this and I kind of gave some foreshadowing. You need to discover your personal skill sets and your personal personality traits and behavior tendencies. So when was the last time that you did a personality assessment? When was the last time that you walked through your personality in depth to understand your strengths and your limitations? And the Career Services Office would be more than willing. We commonly work with the Myers-Briggs personality assessment. But as you understand that the market is incredibly competitive, and that when you are interviewing for an opportunity, when you finally actually submit your resume and you actually get a response from a recruiter and you have that first engagement through whether that's a phone screen or an interview, you want to make sure that you hit it out of the park. You want to make sure that you have a power introduction describing your knowledge, your skills, but also your personality and how you can contribute to the team immediately. So take a personality assessment. The most common personality assessments that we use, or that some of our recruiters use most commonly, is the Myers-Briggs MBTI, the Clifton Strengths Finder, the Enneagram, the Color Code, and DISC, or DISC. So be aware of those. Give all of those a Google. Here at the Missouri Southern Office, Career Services Office, we could provide you a free Myers-Briggs personality assessment, and as well as an in-depth detailed review of that. So again, take time now as you are preparing for your career to grow confident in yourself, because as a common person who interviews candidates or participates on interview committees, the first question that you're going to get is, hey, so tell me about yourself. You need to answer that question with confidence, not only articulating your knowledge and your abilities and your skills, but also how does your personality align with that organization and that organization's values and their mission statement? How are you going to contribute to a team? A personality assessment can go a long way. So again, to recap, you need to focus on you and you need to focus on the following. You need to clarify your skills and your strengths. You need to match those strengths and skills to that career. That's part of the discovery and exploration process. You need to develop a personal brand online. I've talked about that at length, but LinkedIn is critical for you. Having a professional profile on HireLine and Indeed is critical for you. Enhancing your professional digital footprint is critical for you right now. So that's what you need to be focusing on right now. You need to be flexible and open-minded. Again, regardless of what skill sets that you've developed throughout your curriculum, you never know. Like, I was just working with JB Hunt, and we had a former student here who was a music education major who applied at JB Hunt to be a customer sales representative, right? So this is someone who at JB Hunt, a Fortune 500 company, commonly works with customers to make sure that the customer is getting their freight from point A to point B. And he was a music education major, but he was having a really hard time finding a job in the midst of last May. And I happened to just kind of throw out the idea of like, well, have you looked at other industries outside of the education industry? And he's like, well, he kind of had to. And now, as I have followed up with him 6 months later, he got a job at JB Hunt. They loved his personal style. They loved his personality. They loved some of the skills that he brought as an educator, that he was excellent in communication, that he could quickly collaborate and work with someone and help solve a problem, and also was able to teach someone how to use their technology and their app development related to logistics. And so I just want you to broaden your mind, that you need to understand that I don't want you to have stereotypes on specific companies or specific industries or sectors, that you need to open your mind in the midst of COVID-19 and be willing or just challenge yourself to look into a company that you've never heard of or you think is in an industry that's not going to hire you. That type of thought process needs to be removed from your mindset. Again, I've talked about this before, but you need to nurture your network. Your network is critical in you getting from point A to point B. So don't leave any of your contacts high and dry or also unaware of what you're pursuing. And ask for help. Now is the time for you to ask for help in the midst of this process. We are here to help you and we want to help you because we want you to succeed. So whether that as a faculty member or especially, again, this is shameless plug city, right? But the Career Services Office is here to help you. So some final words of advice as we wrap up and have some time for questions. I just want to tell you that COVID can't stop you, ladies and gentlemen, that there are still career pathways and there are still careers that are there for you to be successful. And there's just a wide variety of options. So to continue, you need to continue to develop your story. Every employer needs to know who you are, what you bring to the table, whether that is through a virtual format or through documentation like your cover letter or your resume. Develop your story and let the Career Services Office help so that you can showcase to them that you're the absolute best candidate. Your network really, really matters. Your faculty, your advisors, your staff here at Missouri Southern. And again, I'm not trying to challenge you and be discouraging to you, but they know more than you do. Often, whether that's a faculty member about a specific industry or that's the Career Services Office here, we know of employers that are hiring, and not just the ones on Indeed or LinkedIn or HireLine, because often jobs come from a personal network. Job opportunities can come from a personal network. So how are you nurturing your network and maintaining those relationships? Do your research. You have to stand out to employers related to your knowledge of who they are. So come into the Career Services Office, and if you're applying at JB Hunt, or if you're applying at TAMCO, or Leggett & Platt, or West Technologies, what is that like? Ask us, what have they done? Who have they hired? What type of jobs do they have? Let us help you with that research process. Apply. You need to be throwing your hat into the ring in a wide variety of sectors and industries and job opportunities. But again, we want to make sure that that resume is effective. That resume has to be customized for that specific job. There's often I work with students who may come in exhausted and discouraged about their job search, but they don't understand, like, I've applied for 40 or 50 different jobs. And the first question I always will tell them is, well, are you using a one-size-fits-all resume? Or are you customizing and tailoring that specific resume and a cover letter for that specific job? When you apply to a whole bunch of jobs with one resume, typically you're coming across as probably a generic and ambiguous candidate. So don't do that. But you still need to apply, and we would love to help you in the Career Service Office learn how to connect your knowledge, your skills, and your abilities to a very specific job description. So the last thing I'm just going to say is that MSSU Career Services is here to help you. Don't think that you're alone. I know it can be perceived as intimidating or also just limited, that when you log into Indeed or log into HireLine, or when you're trying to just ask people about jobs, maybe you're just not aware of what jobs are out there. But we are here to help you. We're here to expand your horizons. We're here to challenge you in growing your skill sets, to help you understand and value your network, but also here to help you get connected to an employer, and most importantly, to help you feel successful and confident in the job market. So I'm going to kind of open it up to questions. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the chat and just kind of see what questions we have. My coworker, Shakira Rhodes, has been kind of monitoring what the chat looks like. So let's see here. Any questions coming in, Shakira?
Yeah, some are coming into Career Services.
Oh, okay. All right. So Shakira there's some private questions kind of coming in. So I'll kind of answer these from the top down. If I'm graduating in this semester, so here in May, what is the first thing that you should do? The first thing that you should do is make sure that you have all of your career documentation in order. Do you have your resume, like at least a foundational draft created? Are you aware of the various industries and job opportunities that are out there or that are coming down the pike? The first thing I would suggest that you do if you're graduating this semester is make an appointment with the Career Services Office. It's critical for you to understand what is being asked of you as a candidate. That way we can help prepare you to make sure that you are, one, that your devices are ready for a virtual interview. And most importantly, that your resume is articulating and communicating your knowledge, skills, and abilities effectively. That would be the first thing I would do. Another question I see kind of come in, what can I do to boost my online presence? One of the things, and I mentioned LinkedIn numerous times, but here's a case in point for you. I want all of you, again, not right now, but after this presentation is over, I want you to give yourself a Google, all right? Don't be naive. You all are living in the technological age. All of you will be Googled as job candidates, all right? And what is the very first search entry that pops up? If you have a LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn and Google have an algorithmic agreement that regardless of what other online content is out there about you, your LinkedIn profile will always be the very first search result that comes up if you have a LinkedIn profile. So the first thing that I would suggest you do as far as in boosting your online presence is making sure you have a LinkedIn profile. If you have a LinkedIn profile, you definitely need to make sure that you have a professional headshot. All right. What is your picture? Your picture shouldn't be a bathroom selfie. All right. Your picture should be a professional headshot, and the Career Services does that regularly for our students. We also want to make sure that all of your knowledge, skills, and abilities from your resume are articulated onto your LinkedIn profile, and we'd be happy to help with that. I have a question here. How long does the average job search take during the pandemic? So typically, prior to pandemic, and also that your average job search was 60 to 90 days. So let that sink in for a second. That was pre-pandemic. Now, as we've worked with the National Association of Colleges and Employers, that actually hasn't been that high of an uptick. It's now 90 to 120 days. But think about that in months, all right? For you to find, again, a career level job, how long is that going to take you? It's going to take you doing some research. It's going to take you doing some digging and some networking, all right? For you to be flexible and patient. So be mindful of what that looks like and start. It's never too early to start preparing for that. How do I find out about more on-campus professional development events? Please go to our website. If you go to mssu.edu/career, and on the left-hand side, you'll actually see a whole list, a whole menu for students and student events. We have our virtual professional development series. We'll have 3 more of these this coming semester. Well, next week we have our mock interview day event, and we have our Dress to Impress event. We have a whole bunch of events for you this spring semester that are coming down the pike for you to continue to enhance and develop yourself as a professional. So stay connected to us on social media, stay connected to us through email. Please check your email, as well as make sure to be checking back on our website. Let's see, I have, how would I tell someone about my personality type during an interview? Do I just say I am an INFJ, which is a Myers-Briggs personality type? No, absolutely not. You want to make sure that you're not speaking you would say, speaking in terms or using a vernacular that they may not be familiar with. So say, for example, you walked into Freeman Health System. Freeman Health System commonly use what's called the color code. They don't necessarily use Myers-Briggs. So that's why it's important for you to understand your personality in depth and be able to describe it in plain language. You don't want to just say, hey, I'm an ESTJ, or hey, I'm an Enneagram 2. You wanted to be able to describe your personality by those strengths and by the strengths and opportunities that you bring to that specific team based upon your personality structure. So based on that, that's why you have to do a little bit of homework about yourself so that you can articulate those in plain language. All right, another question here. So many questions coming in. If the market is so competitive, what are some quick things that I can do to stand out? One of the quick things, as far as if it is a competitive, because it is a competitive environment, one of those things that I would suggest that you do to immediately stand out is having a really well-written cover letter. Having a very professional resume, as well as being on LinkedIn. Like there's multiple assets and multiple facets for you to provide and kind of an instant professional appearance, as well as for you to stand out towards a candidate. So for example, Here's the process that I would suggest every candidate do when they're applying for a job. If you find a job opportunity, whether that's at H.E. Williams or TAMCO or a local regional employer, you apply for that job. You tailor your resume specifically for that job description, reflecting about how your previous experiences, your previous academic experiences have prepared you for that opportunity. And you write a really effective cover letter describing, again, your resume tells an employer what you have done. A cover letter tells an employer what you can do. Those are two totally different things. And then you make sure to also do some digging and find out who's behind that specific job posting. All right. And guess what? Our HireLine platform allows you to do a little bit of company research to find out, again, if it's regardless if it's posted on HireLine, you could do some company research to find out who's the HR generalist or talent acquisition specialist at an Ozark Center or at Freeman Health System. So then 3 to 5 days after you apply, you contact that specific person, either via phone or email, and just confirm with them, hi, my name is Alex Gandy. I recently applied for that quality supervisor position. I just want to confirm that you received my application materials. And they say yes. And you're like, thank you so much. I would love an opportunity to talk further about my skills. And then that concludes the conversation. So again, standing out is there's going to be a wide variety of ways for you to do that, but it is having effective communication throughout the application process, following up on your application, and enhancing your digital footprint. That's the best that you can do. Looks like the last question is, how can I keep myself organized during a job search? Keeping yourself organized it's unique to each person. However, it's important for you to keep track of where you have applied and who you are applying to and what types of jobs that you're applying for. So whether that you have, again, I see some students who use something super old school, like it's literally a spiral bound notebook and they write down each specific job that they've applied to. Some students use HireLine really effectively. HireLine has a favorites option so that you can keep track of which jobs you have favorited, which jobs you have applied for, so that you can then follow up pretty seamlessly. I also have students who keep an Excel spreadsheet that way they understand what is the stage of their application process as they're searching for a job. That way also, again, I've kind of challenged you to broaden your horizons in the midst of the pandemic, in the midst of COVID-19 in your job search. But that way you can also categorize the different jobs that you are applying for in the midst of a wide variety of job opportunities. And so maybe you have a Trello board, which is an online task management software. Maybe it's an Excel spreadsheet. Maybe it's a spiral bound notebook. But as you start to broaden your horizons, as you start to apply for more jobs, one, for that follow-up process, you want to make sure that you know where you have applied and how you have applied and what you have articulated to them as far as your strengths, so that when you do get that interview, you'll be able to connect those dots seamlessly and professionally. All right, any other questions coming in here? I don't see any. I know it's almost been an hour, so I just want to thank you for your time. Again, I've kind of, as I'm sharing my screen right now, I just want to remind you, Career Services is here to help you. We're located in Spiva Library right now. We are doing all virtual appointments, all right? So there's no excuse for you not to meet with us. We would be happy to be here. Our phone number there is listed, our email. You can follow us on social, and we would be so happy to partner with you, to walk alongside you, to make you feel confident and successful in the job market in the midst of COVID-19. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. And if you have any questions, reach out and ask.